human endeavor, from academics to software coding. However, the power of AI is not limited to recent inventions or events. It has been used to tease out more info from some of the most important documents to survive in human history. Thanks to rapidly developing technology, researchers have discovered hidden details previously missed in the Dead Sea Scrolls. It uncovered evidence that more than one scribe was involved in the penmanship, shattering everything scientists thought they knew about these precious ancient documents and how they illuminate the Bible. In addition, it could lead to a large treasure that's been hidden for a long time. Many consider the Dead Sea Scrolls to be the most important archaeological find of the 20th century. Teams of scholars piece these scrolls together to create an incredible library of texts dating from the 3rd century BCE to the 1st century CE. In late 1946 or early 1947, Bedouin teenagers were tending their goats and sheep near the ancient settlement of Qumran, which is located on the northwest shore of the Dead Sea in what is now known as the West Bank. One of the young shepherds threw a rock into a cliff opening and was surprised to hear it shatter. He and his companions later entered the cave and discovered a collection of large clay jars, 7 of which contained leather and papyrus scrolls. One of the things that make the Dead Sea Scrolls very valuable in the scientific circles is that the Dead Sea Scrolls contain parts from almost the entire Hebrew Bible. Except for the Book of Esther, the Dead Sea Scrolls contain fragments from every book of the Old Testament. Scholars believe that traces of this lost book, which tells the story of the eponymous Jewish queen of Persia, have either disintegrated or have yet to be discovered. Isaiah is the only complete book of the Hebrew Bible preserved among the Qumran manuscripts. This copy, dating from the 1st century BC, is thought to be the earliest Old Testament manuscript still in existence. Along with biblical texts, the scrolls contain documents pertaining to sectarian regulations such as the community rule, as well as religious writings not found in the Old Testament. And second, they shed light on the Bible's composition. The earliest surviving copies of the Hebrew Bible were discovered around 1000 CE. The scrolls date back millennia. Scholars can see similarities between the scrolls and later biblical manuscripts. They have, however, discovered some variation. Some Qumran scrolls of Exodus and Samuel, for example, preserve passages that were missing from later biblical manuscripts. These could be different traditions that were in use at the time the scrolls were written, or scribal errors that crept into some manuscripts. As a result, the Dead Sea Scrolls are useful in reconstructing biblical texts. In addition, the discovery of the scrolls is remarkable because ancient scrolls, usually written on parchment or papyrus, are extremely rare in the archaeological record. Because such writing materials are organic, they decompose quickly. Despite this, the Judean desert's arid environment allowed these texts to survive. They're still legible after more than 2 millennia. Who wrote the Dead Sea Scrolls? The majority of the scribes who copied the text in the Dead Sea Scrolls were anonymous because they did not sign their work. Scholars have found it difficult to determine whether a given manuscript should be attributed to a single scribe or more than one based on differences in their writing styles. But that has not stopped scholars from debating the origins of the Dead Sea Scrolls, which were written between 150 BC and 70 AD. According to popular belief, they were created by somebody in a Jewish population that lived in Qumran until it was destroyed by Roman troops around 70 AD. These Jews are thought to have belonged to the Essenes, a devout, ascetic, and communal sect that existed in Judea before and during the Roman era. Proponents of this theory point to similarities between the traditions outlined in the Community Rule, a scroll detailing the laws of an unnamed Jewish sect, and the description of Essene rituals provided by the Roman historian Flavius Josephus. Archaeological evidence from Qumran, such as the ruins of Jewish ritual baths, also suggest that the site was once inhabited by observant Jews. However, some scholars attribute the scroll's creation to a source from other groups, such as early Christians and Jews fleeing the Romans who passed through Qumran. While the origin has never been pinpointed, a new study that used AI and statistics to detect subtle differences in handwriting on one of the ancient documents has proven the manuscript was written by not one but 2 scribes. The 2 scribes wrote so similarly that the differences between them aren't visible to the naked eye, according to the analysis. a detail that suggests the scribes may have received similar training, perhaps at a school or in a close social setting. According to Mladen Popovi, a professor of the Hebrew Bible and ancient Judaism at the University of Groningen in the Netherlands, this is just the beginning. Their work has opened the door to the micro level of individual scribes, which will open up new possibilities for studying all of the scribes behind the Dead Sea Scrolls and put us in a new and potentially better position to understand what kind of collection or collections of manuscripts these documents really were. Prior to the advent of AI, biblical scholars attempted to deduce the number of scribes who worked on the various Dead Sea Scroll manuscripts by looking for a smoking gun in their handwriting. For example, they looked for a specific trait in a letter that would identify a scribe. The problem with this method, however, was these smoking gun analyses were frequently subjective. As a result, the conclusions were often contentious. This is due in part to the fact that one scribe's writing style can vary quite a bit, so how does one tell what is a natural variation and what is a subtle difference indicating a different hand? Adding to the confusion, similar handwriting could be the result of two scribes receiving similar training, a sign the scribe was fatigued or injured, or a sign the scribe switched writing implements. Furthermore, it's nearly impossible for these experts to process the massive amounts of data provided by the scrolls. For instance, the letter Aleph appears at least 5,000 times in the Isaiah scroll, making it nearly impossible to compare every single Aleph by eye. So Popovi and his colleagues turned to artificial intelligence and statistics to investigate the Great Isaiah Scroll, one of the 7 scrolls discovered by the Bedouin shepherds. This well-preserved scroll, dating from around 125 BC, is 24 feet or 7.3 meters long and 10 inches or 26 centimeters high. It spans 54 columns of Hebrew text. Popovi was drawn to one particular spot. Between columns 27 and 28, there is a small break in the text and a new page where 2 sheets have been sewn together. Popovi's team wanted to see if they could solve the mystery of whether this scroll was written by 1 or 2 scribes. In effect, the researchers wanted to know whether subtle differences in writing should be regarded as normal variations in the handwriting of one scribe or as similar scripts by 2 different scribes. The methods used by the researchers detected subtle and nuanced differences in the handwriting that we could not discern with the human eye alone. The fact that 2 scribes collaborated on the Great Isaiah Scroll demonstrates that ancient scribes worked in teams. Moreover, unlike smoking gun analyses, this research is not just a conjecture but based on evidence now. The researchers had to train the algorithm to distinguish the text or ink from the background, which consists of animal skin or papyrus, when designing it. This distinction, known as binarization, was devised by study co-researcher Maruf Dali, a doctoral student in the Department of Artificial Intelligence at the University of Groningen, who developed an artificial neural network that could be trained using deep learning. A neural network is an artificial intelligence method for teaching computers to process data in a manner inspired by the human brain. And deep learning is a type of machine learning process that employs interconnected nodes or neurons in a layered structure that resembles the human brain. It generates an adaptive system that computers can use to learn from their mistakes and continuously improve. Thus, artificial neural networks attempt to solve complex problems with greater accuracy, such as summarizing documents or recognizing faces. Neural networks can assist computers in making intelligent decisions with minimal human intervention. This is because they can learn and model non-linear and complex relationships between input and output data. The process of teaching a neural network to perform a task is referred to as neural network training. Neural networks learn by first processing several large sets of labeled or unlabeled data. Using these examples, they can then process unknown inputs more accurately. After the ancient letters were converted into digital images, this neural network recorded the original ink traces on the manuscript. The study's senior researcher, Lambert Schomaker, a professor of computer science and artificial intelligence at the University of Groningen, explained that this is significant because the ancient ink traces are person-specific and relate directly to a person's muscle movement. The neural network analysis revealed that the Great Isaiah Scroll's 54 columns of text were divided into 2 distinct groups, with a transition about halfway through the manuscript. Dali informed Schomacher that there could be more than one writer, so Schomacher conducted a separate analysis but came to the same conclusion. Schomacher looked at fraglets or parts of letters that can be more precise, distinctive, and informative in finding significant shape differences than full characters. The team added checks and controls to the text to be extra cautious, but even after adding more noise to the data, the result remained unchanged. In fact, the result also demonstrated that the second scribe has more variation in his writing than the first, despite the fact that their writing is very similar. The team then conducted a visual analysis by creating heat maps. These maps included all variants of a given letter, such as the Hebrew letter Aleph, which was found in the scroll. They then created an average letter from the first 27 columns and another from the last 27 columns. They then compared the averaged letters and discovered that there were significant differences between the two, and the differences were statistically significant. Popovi said, "Now we can confirm this with a quantitative analysis of the handwriting as well as with robust statistical analyses. Instead of basing judgment on more or less impressionistic evidence, with the intelligent assistance of the computer, we can demonstrate that the separation is statistically significant." Popovi and his colleagues intend to analyze other scrolls using the method, which could reveal different origins or training for different scribes. These investigations may also shed light on the communities that wrote the Dead Sea Scrolls. Ultimately, understanding the Dead Sea Scrolls scribes allows us to better understand what's called the cultural evolution of the Hebrew Bible. The new study is the first time that an automatic procedure was used to identify the transition of style in the Great Isaiah Scroll, according to Shira Feigenbaum-Golovin, a researcher in Tel Aviv University's Department of Applied Mathematics who specializes in biblical-era handwriting analyses, even though he was not involved in the research. The method used handles well the challenges raised by the scroll's poor state of preservation via robust binarization. The study also shows the benefit of introducing other disciplines into paleographic research. There is another reason that people are anxious to understand the Dead Sea Scrolls, and it has to do with one of the fragments known as the Copper Scroll. Treasure hunters believe it contains clues to the location of a large cache of buried ancient treasures. The Copper Scroll stands out. This scroll, written in cryptic language on a thin copper sheet, contains what many experts believe is a treasure map, complete with detailed directions to where a fortune in gold and silver is hidden. The Copper Scroll was discovered in 1952 in Cave 3 at Qumran. Analysis revealed that it's made of copper alloyed with a trace of tin. Researchers initially thought that they were two separate scrolls, but after cutting the scroll apart for examination, they now believe the thin metal snapped 2 centuries ago. This scroll and its contents are shrouded in mystery because scholars cannot agree on a translation of the text. The scroll is almost entirely written in Mishnaic Hebrew, with a few entries in Greek thrown in for good measure. Another issue is the text contains words and references that the experts simply do not understand. The majority of early Hebrew texts are religious in nature and use a distinct vocabulary. One thing that scientists agree on, however, is that the Copper Scroll is not religious. But perplexingly, it contains words and phrases that are not found in any other ancient text, making an accurate translation difficult and leaving room for wide interpretation. Scholars have discovered 63 distinct entries on the Copper Scroll that describes the location of more than 160 tons of hidden gold and silver. However, the translations are hazy and general. One entry mentions finding a treasure in the gutter at the bottom of the tank. Another entry mentions 65 gold bars that can be found in the cavity of the old House of Tribute on the chain platform. Historians are unfamiliar with these reference points and are unsure where to begin their search for the treasure. According to Theodore Gaster, author of the Dead Sea Scriptures, 4 competing theories exist behind the treasure of the Copper Scroll. The first one is the treasure belonged to the people of Qumran. Some scholars believe that the community was a religious cult that avoided the trappings of material wealth. The second is that the treasure represents antiquities recovered from the destruction of Jerusalem's Second Temple in 70 AD. According to Josephus, a 1st century historian, those treasures were still in the building when it was destroyed and were not removed for posterity or safekeeping. The third theory is that the Copper Scroll refers to the treasures recovered from the First Temple of Jerusalem, which was destroyed in 586 BC by Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar. However, this is called into question because the temple was destroyed 500 years before the text, according to scholars. The fourth and last theory is that the Copper Scroll is a hoax and there is no lost treasure to be discovered. Let's hear